Anyone who knows me knows I'm a Covington Rogers guy. I love the drums built in Covington. But what means more to me are the people who work their fingers to the bone building these drums. I'm lucky enough to have gotten to know some of these people, and one of them is my friend Dan Davis. Dan worked for Rogers from 1963 all the way into Fullerton. Let's listen to Dan tell the path of a Covington drum from raw shell to completion.
So what was your main responsibility at the factory?
Mostly I was drilling and putting on the bearing edges and repair. I was just all over the place. And I even assembled quite a few. If they needed somebody on assembly, I'd go up and I'd work on assembly. I more or less floated. Worked where I needed. Most of it was drilling and putting on bearing edges. I did just about all of them.
So, would you be able to take me through the process of what would happen to a drum from start to finish? Like, the shells would arrive, and then what would happen? Where would they go next?
Then it go in what we call the pearl room. That's where they put the wrap on it. And then it came out of there, and it came to drilling, and we got it drilled, and we cut the bearing edges with the router. We did the bearing edges and the snare beds.
What did you use to cut the snare beds? Like, how did you measure the depth and all that?
Joe had made a mill, probably about 3 or 4 inches long mill, and he had that thing angled, had it cut and angled just to the shape that we wanted, and then it come up. We could raise it up and down for the depth of the snare bed that we wanted. Which you're just looking at tenths there, you know, and you very seldom ever. And we used a feeler gauge like you use for checking points in a car. That's the kind of feeler gauge we used.
So did Joe always set up the machines, set the depths and all that, and set the router?
Oh yeah.
Joe Thompson, that is.
He set up the router. When he come in to do that, he's going to show us how to do it. So he got it set up, and he had him a long board there. He's going to run it through the router. He started running it through, and the router grabbed hold of the board and throwed it back. And then somebody back there went right through him. It just jerked it right out of his hand. There wasn't nobody standing there.
All right.
Scared the out of Joe, though. Then, when he had the router set up, we had just a big table there, and then we put the drums on there, and we just go around the circle on the router with the drums and cut the bearing edge. And then we would belt sand them and get all the roughness off of them and hand sand them and make sure everything was. One thing we make sure that was level. The most important thing we did on these drums is kept them level all the way through. After when we started from drilling and then all the way through.
So after they would leave you, the routing and the drilling, where would they go next?
Well, we put the snare beds in them, and then we'd take them back into what we called the repair room. And that's where they put the gray paint inside of them. And we repaired anything that needed repaired, like if on the drilling, if it split out a little bit. We had a guy back there, a couple guys that just repaired and filled them drums in. You couldn't even tell that they'd split out the time we got done with them.
Right. So they would do any repairs, and then they would go to the gray paint?
Yeah, they go with the gray paint. And after that, we'd put them out into assembly. The assembly table is right outside the door, the big room where the repair was, and then the assembly table was right outside the door. And we'd stack them out there, and guys would assemble them out there. Jerry Shields had his little test area right there by the door, and that's where he tested the Dynasonics.
Right. So Jerry was near the assembly?
Yeah, he was right there in assembly, and that's where he tested his Dynasonics right there on, at the end of the assembly bench.
So then after assembly, where would they go?
Go to the headline. The girls would put the heads on them, and
so were the drums tuned up when they left the factory? So they left the headroom tuned up?
Yeah, the girls tuned them up there on the headline.
Of course, after the drum left the headline, it would head to shipping and receiving, where it was boxed up and headed off to its destination. I hope you enjoyed these looks inside the Covington factory with the employees.